Double trouble? Double trouble? I don't know what it is about Primetime Toys, the Dart Zone, some parts of Adventure Force this year, but the blasters they've been putting out are just amazing, extremely exciting blasters that do a variety of different new things and some cool twists on some old things. And this is one of those blasters that kind of falls in the middle, but I have to say right off the bat, this is an exciting blaster. You should be excited for this one. I was sent this a little bit early from Primetime Toys. This actually doesn't come out until about the beginning of December, I was told. And this is, for right now, a Walmart exclusive in the US. But this is the Adventure Force Double Trouble. And you can kind of guess how it got that name because of the two drums on the side of it that, you know, they kind of... Yeah, you can see how that works out. Interesting name, but it is a flywheel-powered internal magazine slash drum blaster, a revolving turret, if you will. That's not something that we see a whole lot of recently, and that's a really important factor because if you don't have a bunch of magazines, then getting into like a competitive Nerf scene can be extremely difficult. And when we get blasters like this that are relatively compact and yet really powerful out of the box and work extremely well and don't require you to buy a whole bunch of gear and then magazines and stuff like that, it's something that I can get really behind. I know I kind of have a penchant for not liking magazines, but bear with me on this one because this thing, the retail is $20. And I'm gonna jump right into the performance. I was hitting consistently over 90 FPS. Again, nothing new when it comes to Primetime Toys, because a lot of their flywheelers are a little bit hot. This one's actually running off 6 AA's, which I thought was quite a bit, considering it's not full auto or anything like that. In fact, it's essentially a Strife, but without any kind of magazine on it. The grip, these relatively big and chunky, this kind of trigger well might get in your way if you're, you know, got substantially meaty hands, but for me, it fits absolutely perfectly. The trigger throw is a bit long, but not that bad in my opinion, because it is a semi-auto mechanical blaster, very similar to the Strife, and here it is right next to a Strife. As you can see, the Strife is a little bit shorter, so that can be a deal breaker, and a lot skinnier, because of course the Strife takes a magazine, this does not. So there's kinds of pros and cons to both of those things there. But when you consider that this thing hits so hard out of the box and is going to be extremely easy to work on and, in my opinion, looks really freaking cool, there's a lot to love here, seriously. And I think the kind of coolest factor about this entire blaster is that it's brake action. I kind of wish it did a little bit more on the brake action thing, but that's pretty cool. A brake action flywheel pistol. That's not something you see every day. It's somewhat similar to how things like the Mech 20 and such works, although it doesn't have those contacts or anything up here. So honestly, when you turn it on, I can still stop the flywheels with my finger. That might be a little bit of a safety concern. I don't really think it is, because I just put my finger right in there. But if you have like long hair and you're a dumb kid and you get your hair caught in that, that might suck. I think there's more things out there like an RC car that can do just as bad, but that could suck for you. But this makes two interesting things. For one, it's compact and easy to carry. Like if you don't want to have the drum and you can just hold it like this, have it in your gear, and then to reload it, you would just press that thumb release right there and just put that in there. And it's really easy to reload. And that's important because if you have multiples of these, not that you'd probably want to carry this gigantic drum around. I'm not going to say it's the most optimal use of space ever, but if you wanted to, it's really easy to completely switch out the drum and replace it with a fresh one. So you can do that. I don't exactly know why you would, but you can. And yes, since it has a drum, you can easily refill it. You can refill it on either side because, of course, the darts go inwards on this one. So if I turn this on and fire it, oh, listen to that pop. Oh, it's so good. you can see how this thing feeds. But yeah, once I open it, it's still running. Kind of normal for primetime toys at this point is the lack of a rev trigger. Now, for those of you that complain about things on YouTube videos because you're 15 years old and you think you're being witty about trigger discipline with my toy blasters, I don't know why this is such a big conflict of interest, but for some reason it is. Well, you sillies out there can just pretend this is the safety. So I think everybody wins on that. Now, if you're left-handed, you're kind of screwed, but if you're right-handed, I've got reasonably small hands, and it's really easy for me to just pick up the thing and flick that down and flick it back up. No problem whatsoever. So that could be an added feature to some of you, but yeah, no rev trigger, kind of a bummer, especially with such a long trigger pull. It could have a trigger built-in rev thing to where if you hold down the trigger a little bit, it revs the blaster, then it fires it. I'm not sure why they don't do these kinds of things. I'm sure there's some reason for it, but for some reason it's never done. Cosmetically, I think it looks friggin' sweet. I really like how this blaster looks. It's a very compact except for the drums, but honestly, they're not that bad. They don't stick out that much. Now, this would get in the way of being holstered or anything, but luckily for us, there's not only a sling point right here, but there's a sling point up here, so you can 1-point sling it down here, or you can 2-point sling it, put it under your arm, and that would work perfectly fine. So you could just whip the thing up and press that and fire it, or if this really bothers you, just add a rev trigger to it. That's not that difficult to do. Perhaps I'll do a video on it sometime. But I really like the look of this thing. Now, it does have a very comfortable bottom grip right here, so if you want to just use it like essentially a compact SMG kind of thing, you totally can. It's definitely not a rifle. There's no attachment points or anything on it. There's no muzzle. In fact, if you want to take off this big orange muzzle, you could cut it down even further, but it's really compact and nice in the hand. The ergonomics are on point with this one. I'm quite happy. It's basically the flywheel version of like a Magnum Super Drum, but of course without the 40 darts capacity, and that might be the Achilles heel on this one. While it is cool that you have 20 rounds, which is a considerable amount, there's a couple of things that could have made that better, like a higher capacity there. I get the way the double trouble works is that it needs to have these gaps in it for them to mesh up right there. So when it feeds in, I get that, but at the same time, that's just a lot of wasted space. 20 darts in a container that's this big is not really exceptional, and something I wish, hopefully the designers at Dart Zone see this at some point. I know I'm asking for a lot here, but rear loading holes. There is no reason this blaster cannot have rear loading holes on it. In fact, I will add them to this blaster because if you look in the actual chambers, I know that's a little difficult on video, but there's no dart posts or anything in there. They hold in darts perfectly fine, but there's no reason why this thing couldn't have rear loading gates at the back so you could just slot in new darts at the top without having to tilt the blaster away from your target or remove the drum. That's something that is, I think, just completely oblivious to some designers, and we really need more blasters that do that. I know doing that with a Springer blaster makes all sorts of interesting problems with seals, but in a flywheel blaster, that is a missed mark. Just like how I was very vocal about the Magnum Super Drum having a removable pin, and they did that, I'm going to be extremely vocal about them possibly changing this design to add in rear loading gates. I think that's something this blaster definitely needs. If you even want to mold out a little flared piece so people can very easily put darts in it, that would be even better. That's about all I have to complain about, though, because the double trouble is gonna be something a lot of you are going to want to pick up, especially the $20 price is really good, but at Walmart, it's gonna get even cheaper over time. And if you could pick these things up for 15 bucks, it might be one of the best $15 blasters you could possibly ever get. Those 90 FPS marks out of the box with no kind of modification using their included darts. I know these aren't, you know, Nerf Elite darts, but they're better in every single way. So I'm just gonna take everything up to these being this is what I'm gonna do all my crony readings with for now on, because these things are so freaking good. I don't know why you'd ever use the Nerf standard anymore, but that's a lot. And this is going to be a game changer for a lot of people who really just want to get into the hobby, grab something that's small, intuitive, doesn't require them to grab a whole bunch of stuff. It's very easy for you to just rattle off a bunch of shots and then load it back up and move to the next point. It's not gonna let you hold down objectives for a long time or anything like that, but we've got other blasters to do that in the Primetime Toys line, like my current favorite blaster, the Command Fire, or the Light Command, or the Titan Fire. There's so many other blasters that do that. This is something that's kind of been missing. Could it have worked with some kind of new magazine? Possibly, but honestly, I think at this point, judging by how things worked out with Blvd using magazines, I think I'm okay with Primetime Toys just sticking to belts and, well, now these cool little things. And hey, maybe they'll bring out new versions of these and other blasters will use them. Maybe they can make something crazy cool that uses like 4 of them or something. I have no idea, but definitely something you're gonna wanna look out for in the coming month if you're watching this video now, or if you're in the future, hey, you might already wanna pick this up, because this is an exciting blaster that I can give very high remarks to, and I can't wait to see what kind of cool stuff people do with it, because it does have that cool breech loading function on it. It could have had a big massive barrel on the end of it, because it would have been cool to really capitalize on that reloading thing right there. And seriously, the rear loading gates, that would be awesome. Let me know what you think about the Double Trouble down in the comment section below. Honestly, I'm really excited, so I hope you're excited too, but I would always love to see where I'm at when it comes to these kinds of reviews. Otherwise, I'm Walcom S7, thank you very much for watching this video, and of course, I hope to see you in an entirely different video.
You gotta